just confirming, you're from marketing, right?
Correct.
What kind of marketing, and where are you into?
Yeah.
Where is based your office?
Yeah. So I'm in product marketing, and I'm in Scotts Valley, which is Santa Cruz County. It's our kind of bike engineering and race kind of headquarters. It's originally where pretty much the whole company was located, but we've kind of spread out since then. But yeah, so product marketing, Santa Cruz.
So product marketing, it means that you talk to the engineers about what is made in, or it's the reverse? Like,
I mean, really, like the easiest way to describe it, how at least how we hold it at Fox, is like brand marketing is like if you're doing a campaign that's like about Fox as a brand, as a company, not about a specific product, but if like product marketing is like very product focused, so it's generally more connected to engineering, more connected to like the technical elements of each specific product. The stuff we covered in the presentation, right? So yeah, brand campaigns are kind of like anything that isn't that, and product campaigns are very much like specific to product.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just double check here. So Sean, it's like in the last years we listened for something in bike market, that is, we haven't been through new really creations. You see, several years ago we have creations like new wheel size.
Yeah,
we got up from 26 to 29. That's
right.
A big thing. Somebody says full suspension. Yeah, and everybody gone crazy. Yeah. No, I'll never use it.
12-speed drivetrains, 1x12, like no more front derailleur, like electronic things. Yeah,
there's been a while that we don't have any fights like that. That people says, no, I'm not into that.
Yeah,
this is crazy, and boom, everything changes. Nowadays, the creations are all like, put one teeth more. Let's put 1 millimeter more, and it's kind of boring. Let's say.
Sure.
So this is a great moment where you come here and say, let's reverse this fork.
Yeah.
This is big thing.
Yeah.
And not talking about product, but marketing.
Yeah.
What's the communication strategy to get these guys who says, I'm not going to use this is crazy? What's your point on it?
I mean, honestly, like, I'll say this, like, one of the things that really attracted me to coming to work for Fox many years ago is this incredible brand, but the history of this brand started with racing success. And that has always been a huge driving force. Like, Bob Fox first made shocks because he was racing motorbikes and he wanted to make something that could go faster. He felt he could do that, and he did, and it changed the world. And we've continued that all along. So marketing in the sense of convincing someone to use something that they might not want to use in that direct sense, that's never really been like our goal. Like, we've always led with like proving it, like, and that means showing what it can do. So, our philosophy with Podium Fork is probably the same as anything else we have, is ride and decide, like, get out there and use it and see what it feels like. So we feel pretty confident that, based on the testing we've done with athletes so far and stuff like this, that like are the people that we sponsor using it within and without of racing, not necessarily just in racing, but just using it, are going to speak so highly of it that people are going to understand how good it is. But kind of beyond that, like all the stuff we covered in the presentation, we're a very technical company. I think going back to what you were saying a minute ago about like everything the last handful of years in mountain bikes has been kind of evolutionary. So it's like 10 more millimeters of travel, 1 more degree slack head angle, whatever, 1.1 inch wider tire, or something like this, right? This is pretty revolutionary. This is a big change. Okay. Again, we acknowledge inverted forks have been done before, but this is the first time we believe that it's really been done right, and been done right for this category, like for hard charging gravity riding, a single crown fork that rides like a downhill fork. So all of those technical features, like that's, again, going back to product marketing, all those technical features that we discussed in the presentation around the product, like that's what's going to convince a person who's maybe skeptical of, they might see on the surface that this is an inverted fork and they might be, I don't think I want that.
But are you aware that this probably going to happen?
Yeah. But if they read your story and then they see, oh, this much more bushing overlap, and that means it's this much smoother, and then, oh, you know, the stiffness is actually very good, you know, then also the damper is very good, the air spring has this new technology, like they start reading all of that stuff that we've communicated. And I think that's like, I guess my point is like, we've never been a company that just like tries to market with smoke and mirrors, or it's like a very like American term, but it means like,
I don't understand.
It means like, if you know a magician, right? He would use smoke, like a smoke machine, and he would use a mirror to make tricks, you know, to trick you.
I understand smoke and beers.
Oh,
and
mirror. So maybe some beers, you get drunk, you forget everything.
Smoke.
I can trick you, but smoke and mirrors means like, you know, you're using tricks.
Okay.
We don't use tricks. We really try to communicate what makes our products great from a technical level, and that's why I think product marketing at Fox is so important, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a really great discussion, because the thing I asked during the presentation about the RS1
Yes.
From RockShox.
Yes.
10 years ago, maybe more, they had a good marketing, because they sell a lot of that fork.
I had one, I really liked it.
Oh yeah? You like it?
I liked it.
But technically, I don't know why the market didn't absorb that.
Yeah.
In like 1 or 2 years after the launch, there was no more.
Yeah.
Well, it's like they sell a lot of them, so I believe this is marketing. But doing the product thing, they have some issues.
Yeah. I think so. I think having been around when that fork was popular and having had one myself is before I worked for Fox, and I think it was a great fork. It's just a different proposition. Cross country, especially cross country back then, weight was everything, you know? And if you could have a fork with 100 millimeter travel that was almost a pound lighter, then that's what you would choose. So you could take a SID or you could take the RS1, right? The SID was a lot lighter. So that's a negative. That's one reason why people would maybe not want to get the RS1 or an inverted cross-country fork. Then it required a special wheel. So you costs a lot. The fork already costs more. Then you have to also get the wheel, because the hub. Or you have to build a wheel, which is that's an obstacle or a barrier to entry, right? Then I think the benefits of an inverted fork tend to be around sensitivity, which that really matters for all types of riding, but it matters way more when you're doing enduro style riding and you're going very fast on very hard terrain. But when you're talking about 100 mil XC, that's a nice thing to have, but it's not something you need to have. So you're not going to probably be accepting of 300 grams weight penalty, 200 grams, whatever it was, and the cost and the challenge of having to source a new front wheel, all to just get that benefit. Okay. If you're a pro rider, maybe, and they give it to you, maybe that's why more people liked it, right? Like if they were given it, and then you remove some of those obstacles, you don't have to worry about the wheel, you don't have to worry about the price, then it's just a matter of weight. No big deal. You can maybe deal with that. So I think it was a great fork. It's just that the positives didn't match up. The value proposition wasn't there for the intended audience of an XC rider. And when they tried to extend the travel to 110 or maybe even 120, it became too flexy because it wasn't designed for that. So totally different fork than Podium, where Podium is designed 170, 160, 150 optimized travel, right? Not cross country. The benefits of all the smoothness and the reduced friction really, really matter to a gravity rider. And the negatives of the added weight don't matter that much. And the stiffness, we figured out solutions to solve for that. So the stiffness is not an issue. The only issue is going to be price. And then as far as the front wheel, yeah, it's not a 15, but it's a Boost 20 by 110. So it's a pretty standard, it's a downhill standard front hub. So finding a wheel is going to be easier than finding a 25 millimeter wheel that's totally proprietary. So
you know what I'm laughing at? It's because sometimes when we talk to the marketing guy,
Yeah.
and he can only say, well, the color is right.
Yeah.
You see, we have the correct announcements, but you talk inch by inch, every millimeter from the fork. And you're not an engineer, you're from marketing.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody on this, it looks like everybody here ride their bicycles, right?
We do. We ride. If I don't ride my bike at least 4 or 5 days a week, I go crazy. I'm not a happy person.
And probably you're going to be fired, right?
Yeah, well,
it looks like a pre-demand on everybody who's here.
You know, what I think is really cool about Fox, and one of the reasons I love working here is there are specific roles, and most people here are pretty passionate about bikes, but it is not a requirement. Like a lot of our people who work in like our digital marketing team are fantastic at what they do, and they ride, but they're not like they don't ride 5 days a week, and that's awesome because they're great at what they do, but they don't need to know the technical details like I do. And my job is to work with engineering, take everything about the product, and then basically translate that to the rest of the marketing team. You know, so that's like, we talked about product marketing versus brand marketing from a consumer facing kind of like end result. But if you talk about it from like a function of the job, like what I actually do, my job is to really be the between the rest of marketing, which is like digital and brand, right? And all of our communications, people who put that message out there through different channels, and engineering, to make sure that like I can speak the same language as engineering and I can speak the same language as marketing, and I translate that.
Okay.
So if I don't know the data points from engineering correctly, then I will translate it poorly and I will give it to marketing, and they'll come out with, you ever see an ad that's like translated from a different language and it doesn't really look right when you see it in your own language? You can tell that it was like something got lost in translation. Like my job is to make sure that nothing gets lost in translation. Okay. So it's very different than like traditional marketing in that sense.
So you said something cool. You're up to product marketing, and there is another guy from the brand marketing. Who is this?
Well, we have a brand marketing team, but there's no person sort of in charge.
Okay, because there is something I remember always. It's not that old, when you released the orange suspension.
Yeah,
this was like magical thing on bike market.
Yeah,
because in a specific World Cup stage, we highlight with all of that orange forks and what's going on. All the bicycles like Specialized, all in red, or Bea in green. I don't know. Scott. All the bicycles are wearing orange forks.
Yeah.
This is something amazing for marketing.
Yeah, I think that was just before my time, but I do think it was a fantastic move, and that is brand marketing, and it was really brilliant. I know the guys that were involved with that, but I wasn't here at the time. But the idea was, they rebranded for Fox, and they went back to like a sort of refined version of the original logo, and also back to kind of the original color palette, and that's where the orange came back. Okay. And it's a lot like a Red Bull helmet, right? Where no matter what team, whatever sport, whatever, you see that helmet, And so we wanted to do something like that, and it worked, and it was very good. Some of our teams get pretty upset with us, and they don't like orange because they think it doesn't match anything. But kind of we think that's the point. It doesn't match, and that's the point. It's unique, it stands out, and then, like you said, we made it match. It's like, even if it doesn't physically match the color, what it represents psychologically feels like a match, and it feels like something prestigious.
Of course. Amazing. That is great. Well, you see, we talk a lot about tendencies in mountain bike. We're living a great moment of tendencies that we don't care much more about weight. A few years ago, it was everything about weight. Like, this is heavy. No, we can use. And this happens before the enduro explosion. Yes. And nowadays it's like the opposite. Yeah. We use there's a few grams more. Yeah. But it's worth. Right. That's the actual tendency for these days. And we know that you are projecting things for 4 or 5 years ahead. You probably had some things on your wallets that we don't know, but what is, I'm not gonna ask what are you going to lunch,
Sure.
but the new tendencies.
Yeah.
What are you up to? The next tendencies after this here from grams and everything get robust, everything get strongest.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really fun topic, and there's a lot of little things that come to mind. The first thing that comes to my mind is like more like from a thematic perspective, not like a specific thing, but many years ago in the road bike scene, right, when aero bikes came out, it was a very similar challenge. And to back it up even further, as long as cycling has been around, right, because on a bicycle, e-bikes kind of changed the paradigm, but on a muscle bike or a pedal, fully human powered bicycle, the weight always matters a lot because you're the motor, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very easy to understand metric that you add grams, you add kilos, like it goes slower. So it's in a very simple term, like lighter is better, right? In very simple terms, but nothing is that black and white. So, but it's very understandable how over decades of cycling being a sport, like the mentality of lighter is faster came to exist, right? Mm-hmm. And it's mostly true, but there's an asterisk at the end of that sentence, right? And it's sometimes you can add a little bit of weight and it adds more performance commensurate than the weight, right? So aero road bikes were a great example because that was one of the first time, and I take it back further, suspension in mountain bikes, front suspension, right? Like when the first RockShox came out in the late 80s, like a lot of people were like, no, I don't want this. I don't need this, right? Yeah. It's like maybe 2 inches of travel, who cares? I don't need it. I'm fine without it. And they were doing fine without it, but they weren't embracing what it could represent, right? So suspension in mountain biking was one of the first examples of where you're adding weight, but you're actually going faster because with the benefit. So you take that philosophy, and that really is true today. People have really begun to understand. I think aero bikes, like I said, was another opportunity where you realize, okay, I add 1 pound to the bike or half a pound maybe, and now it's less because aero is evolved. But you add a little bit of weight to the bike, and technically it should be worse because it's heavier. But when you test it, it's faster. It's faster. So you save time. But it's harder to understand because the calculations to quantify that benefit is very difficult versus a higher number in grams or kilos is more, which is worse, right? So it's harder to comprehend the nuances of performance beyond just weight. So weight is the most universal currency for performance in bikes. But as we all know, when you go too light, you get a bike that's performs very badly. These ultralight road bikes that are lighter than the UCI limit, or if you ride a hardtail with 26-inch wheels and 1.9-inch tires with thin casings, it's very light, but then you try to go down a trail and it's out of control. Okay. Rim brakes, things like this. So disc brakes are another example where you add a little bit of weight and people are reluctant at first. Year 2000, droppers, all of this stuff. Yeah. So I think because of disc brakes, because of droppers, because of aero bikes, because of suspension, because of 29-inch wheels, all of these things that added weight, we've had enough of those now that people have finally gone, okay, the market has matured enough to understand that performance is more than just weight. So weight matters, but it's one of maybe 3 things that matters or whatever, right? So the market has just matured, and the way that people ride has matured. And I think in the case of Podium, for example, it's a very calculated, bet on our part that the extra few hundred grams for the right type of rider will be well worth it for the performance benefit that they're going to get.
And what's next? It's
going to be...
There's a lot of times this is happening.
Yeah. We're working on stuff right now, for 1, 2, 3 years from now, but we can't comment on it. But what I can say is just in speaking in trends, as the market matures, we mature, we pay attention to the market. We have some of the fastest riders in the world, and they're telling us what they think and what they want. So we're always listening, paying attention to what's happening out there. And a great example is when we developed the 34 SL. We had a lot of internal conversations between engineering, between product development, between product marketing, between product management and others in the company who are very connected and influential. And we discussed does it need to be 130 or can it just be 120? Because if we made it 120 max, we could have made it, below 1,400 grams, right? But some of us, myself included, this was a couple years ago, we were thinking, well, by the time this thing gets to market, 130 very well could be the norm, or maybe we can help create a future where it is the norm. And so we're always looking ahead, and we're pretty good at predicting what's coming based on, our history of doing this for a long time and paying attention and having a lot of really smart people in our network.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. You see, I was going to finish here, but I didn't note this, but it's a question that I made here now. Why did you refer, and I believe this is from the marketing guys, why did you refer from your forks not as travel, but as diameter? Their names are 34, 36, 38, not 100, 120, 140.
Yeah. Well, so what's funny is when Fox first came out with forks in 2000, 2001, it was F100, or vanilla 125.
About travel?
Yeah, F80, F100, vanilla 125. So F was float, V was vanilla 125. So we had a coil.
What is vanilla?
Coil. It used to mean coil.
Coil.
Yeah.
Okay.
To kind of signify the smoothness. But yeah, we had 125, 180 mil, and the forks were called that. And they were all 32 millimeter stanchions at the time, I believe.
30.
30?
I think...
RockShox and others were doing 30, but I think we were doing 32.
Okay.
I believe. I believe we were the first ones to do 32. And that was kind of like a little bigger than most. But we felt like, bigger is stiffer. So then just a few years later, when we came out with the 36 model, it made sense to call it 36 because 36 millimeters had not been done before. There were some forks that were single crown that had 150 millimeters of travel, but they were all 32 or 31 or 33. I think Manitou was using maybe 33 millimeter back then. Whatever it was, they were all smaller diameter. So 36 was the first single crown that used a large diameter tube. So it made sense to call out what that number was because it was so different than anything else. And right around the same time, we started showing the 40 publicly as well. Kyle Strait won Rampage on it. World Cup riders started using it, like the Athertons and stuff. So, and the 40 was so big. So that kind of brought about this idea of maybe we call it by that because it helps to identify what you're already seeing. You're seeing something much bigger. And part of that is Fox's off-road, like you saw yesterday, the off-road division.
Okay.
The shocks are always called by diameter, although it's imperial. So it's like 2 inch, 2.5 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 4.2, 4.5. So the off-road shocks that Fox has been making for decades have always been called by diameter.
Okay.
So, but then we did millimeters because it's the bike industry and it's generally metric.
I don't know if you realize, but this kind of names by diameter, it looks like if you want to upgrade stiffness, you choose by diameter.
Stiffness,
not
generally.
By travel.
Yes.
It's like, well, I don't like my cross-country bikes anymore. I want to go up to gravity.
Yeah.
What should I look for?
Yeah.
And somebody will not tell you about more travel, but more diameter.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, and it's correct.
It's correct.
Yeah. That's the Fox
it made sense.
vision.
It really made sense because the bigger number is a bigger riding style. So you're riding cross-country style, 32 is fine for a lot of people. You're riding a little bigger cross-country style, maybe trail, 34. You're riding more bigger trail all mountain, 36, 38. You downhill, 40. So the bigger number is very easy to understand. If you look at some other companies, they use names, and those names can be if you don't know what the name means, then you don't know what the fork is. So and it's like kind of a funny story that comes off this. You didn't ask the question, but I think it's a cool story to share. When I started, we were looking at the forks and we were looking at our shocks, and we were saying, well, and our dampers, and we were like, how can we make our line easier to understand. The forks are very easy to understand. 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, right? But the shocks at the time, we had float DPS, we had float DPX2, we had float X2, we had DHX2, and it's like people would tell me I have an X2. I'm like, well, DPX2, float X2, DHX2, and they're like, I don't know, X2. And, you know, or they'd say I have a float, and you're like, well, which float? And they're like, I don't know, it's a float. Does it have a reservoir? What's a reservoir? Piggyback? I don't know what, you know what I mean? Okay. So we asked ourselves, how can we clean up the naming on the shocks to make them as simple to understand as the forks?
Amazing.
And we ultimately decided that to make it as simple as the forks was going to be really hard. There's a couple reasons for that. One is like with forks, you really do have incremental 32, 34, 36, 38, very incremental and clear distinctions. Rear shocks are more versatile. You can use the same rear shock for maybe like a 50 millimeter travel range or a 30 millimeter travel range, where like a fork, it's like kind of optimized within like 10 to 20 millimeters. So it wasn't, and the diameter doesn't change as much, especially on the shock body. But nonetheless, we asked ourselves, how can we make our rear shocks as easy to understand as our forks, or as close to that as possible? And over the next few years, as we redesigned and reintroduced new shocks, we cleaned up the names. And so now if you look at our shock line, right, you have float SL as the lightest, then you have float as the next lightest, then you have float X as the next up, and then float X2. Okay. And so it's very clear to see in a line, you know, like float is the regular one, and if you want to go lighter, it's SL. If you want to go a little more extreme, it's X. You want to go very extreme, it's X2. And then when we redid the dampers last year, we also had the opportunity to clarify there, because prior to that we had fit 4, we had grip 2. Like, is 4 better than 2 because it's a higher number? You know what I mean? And these kinds of things. And a regular grip versus grip 2, what's the difference? I don't know. So when we redid the dampers and we went away from the fit 4 bladder style as well, and we went to spring-backed IFP, so now we have all grip. So it's very clear to say they're all grip. But then it's like grip SL aligns to float SL, right? And then grip X aligns to float X. Grip X2 aligns to float X2 or DHX2. So very clear to figure out which fork goes with which shock for the most part now, and which fork damper goes with which shock. So not as easy to understand as the forks completely, but about as close as you can get.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for the talk.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And congratulations for this launch. Amazing launch.
Really glad you came.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Guys, this is Sean. Sean what?
Estes.
Sean Estes from marketing at Fox.
Ciao.